Osakabe, also known as Osakabe Hannya, wears one of Japan's finest 12-piece kimonos. She is an elegant white-haired mid-aged woman, but some say she is as beautiful as a fairy. Since ancient times, Osakabe Hannya has been living in Hannya Castle's Tenchikaku, guarding the castle. Every year, she meets with the lord of the castle and tells him the fate of Hannya Castle. Osakabe is a kind of demon that lives in Hannya Castle. Matsuru Shizuyama's Kashoku no Yoru describes it as follows. This demon always stays on the top floor of Tenchikaku. The reason why Osakabe lives in such a hidden form is because she hates humans and doesn't like to be approached. Anyone who walks near her place will be banished immediately. Once a year, when she meets the lord of the city, she disguised as an old woman. One year, Matsuru Shizuyama asked Yorakudo, the courtier Sakari Tadayoshi, about her. Yorakudo replied, "Despite what people say, there is nothing special about Tenchikaku. Tenchikaku is small and inconvenient to keep things in. Therefore, it is seldom visited. There is only one thing that has been kept in Tenchikaku since the beginning of time. It was an armor with a sun flag on it. Later, a man named Tukan stayed at Hannya Castle. He asked the innkeeper about the Osakabe. The innkeeper replied that there was indeed such a thing in the city. However, the local people did not call it Osakabe, but Hattenden. It is said that the shrine is next to Tenchikaku, and that even the lord of the castle honors it. Matsuru Shizuyama, who was very interested in Osakabe, was the lord of the Hirado clan in Hizen province, present-day Hirado city, Nagasaki prefecture. At least 2 or 3 of his essays mention Osakabe. It seems that Osakabe was a very famous monster at that time. There is another legend about Osakabe. The swordsman Miyamoto Musashi was chasing a fox demon. Osakabe suddenly appeared and blocked the fox's way. She gave Miyamoto her sword and killed the demon. There are many different stories about the life of Hannya Osakabe. It is generally believed that she is an old fox. It is also believed that she was born out of incest between Prince Inoue and his son, Prince Tado, or the spirit of a wife once favored by Emperor Fushimi. Others say she is the female mountain goddess of Hannya Castle.
Osakabe.
Once upon a time, a man named Hannya Hiroba made a mask of an Oni woman, and people called the Oni woman Hannya. An Oni woman is a demon whose heart is filled with female jealousy and anger. There are many stories about the masks of Hannya from all over Japan. The most famous one is Diamond Flesh Mask, which is a story about a dispute between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. In ancient times, there was an evil mother-in-law who always made things difficult for her daughter-in-law, even though the daughter-in-law's husband and children died of illness, but she still lived with her mother-in-law. One day, the daughter-in-law went to visit the graves of her husband and children. On the way, her mother-in-law put on a mask of Hannya to scare her, seeing her daughter-in-law's frightened expression. The mother-in-law was very happy, but when she tried to take off the mask, she could not do so. She had no choice but to confess and apologize to her daughter-in-law. The daughter-in-law thought it must be because of her mother-in-law's evil thoughts that she could not take off the mask. They went to a high priest and asked him to recite Buddhist prayers. After asking the monk to recite Buddhist sutras, the Hannya mask was removed. This story is a popular one among people who believe in Buddhism. It is said that the masks are still preserved in the Kankeiji and Yoshizaki temples in Fukui Prefecture. This incident took place in the early Meiji period. There was a young man who was devoted to the gods. He wanted to study at the Shinto shrine in Ise. As he traveled from Zemzaki to Osaka, it was getting late, so he went to an inn and stayed there. The room in the inn was very gloomy, airy and uncomfortable. At nearly 2 a.m., the young man who fell asleep suddenly felt a chill on the back of his neck, and then felt something riding on him. He struggled desperately, but his body did not move. After a while, the thing riding on the young man stuck its head out and looked at his face, and the ugly face was clearly a Hannya. Hannya opened his mouth and blew a breath at the young man's face. The young man suffered for the whole night. Don't you think it's because of his bad breath, do you? At dawn, the young man left the inn in a hurry and went to the Osaka Jingu Shrine branch. He rented a room on the first floor of the branch. But Hannya appeared again and continued to torment him. After half a year, the young man arrived at the Jingu temple. He did not expect Hannya to be there again. As long as Hannya appeared, the young man could not move or even make a sound. Due to extreme nervousness, he left the monastery, and his whereabouts are unknown. Some kind of spirit must have targeted the young man. The Hannya has beautiful feature, but is fierce in nature. She usually lives in the mountains and in the middle of the night. She eats people, especially children. She also has a terrifying laugh. The Japanese believe that the living people can also be affected by some kind of obsession, such as jealousy, bitterness, resentment, and so on. In other words, Hannya's actual form is a living person. She doesn't even know the whole process. She just subconsciously feels like she is in a dream. There is a story about Hannya in the famous Tale of Genji in Japan. The hero of the story, the Kugenji, was a nobleman in the Heian period. He was not only from a distinguished family, but also handsome and affectionate. The heroine is Rakuyo Gashosho, who lived a life of luxury and nobility as the crown princess. However, after she lost her husband, and soon fell in love with Kugenji, but Kugenji was an amorous person and soon fell out of love with her and found a new lover. So Rakuyo Gashosho spent her days hating and cursing Kugenji for his lack of love and loyalty, and took her jealousy out on Kugenji. She vented his jealousy on Aoi, his wife, and his new lover, Yuzuya, whether he eats, sleeps, day or night. Rakuyo does only one thing: jealousy and cursing. Driven by such strong resentment, she finally transformed into the evil spirit Hannya. Every night, she appeared in Aoi's bedchamber and tortured him. In the end, Aoi died in extreme fear and pain. Then she started to appear at Yuzuya's pillow every night. This caused great pain to Yuzuya, and her face became more and more haggard. Later on, Kujuji seems to be aware of the presence of ghosts and other things, so he called the monks together and tried to get rid of the demon by praying. However, Rakuyo Gashosho's hatred was so strong that no matter what he did, he could not get rid of it. In the meantime, Rakuyo Gashosho did not realize that she had become a cruel bona fide being, but only felt her own jealousy. As for what she did during the night, she was completely unaware of it. In fact, without realizing it, she traveled across space, through a deep tunnel of consciousness, and in the form of Prajna, went to Aoi's sleeping quarters and tortured her to death, and then did the same to Yuzuya. After Yuzuya's death, Rakuyo Gashosho realized that her subconscious had done all those things, and she felt guilty. Out of fear of her own subconscious evil spirit, she shaved her head and became a monk. She hoped that through her sincere prayers, she could drive away the evil spirits in her heart.
Hannya.
Kaoru, the illegitimate son of Genji's wife, the third princess, is deeply infatuated with Yuji Daikon, but he is unmoved and introduces his sister, Yukiharu, to him. Kaoru is saddened when he dies of an illness, Lamenting the fact that he is a Yuji Hashiheim, Yukiharu was born in a humble way, and Kaoru took her as a substitute for Daikon, not really loving her, and later abandoned her in the desolate Yuji mountain village. Unable to bear the cruelty of reality, she suicided in the Yuji River. Later generations merged the Daikon and Yukiharu into one, and that Yuji Hashiheim was portrayed as a beautiful goddess who waited for her love. Legend has it that Hashiheim and Hakama no Mikami were lovers. Hakama no Mikami had a date with Hashiheim every day. She sat on the bridge night after night, waiting for Hakumen to arrive. In the early hours of the morning, the waves of the Ujigawa River surged, and people said it was a sign of their love. People say that is the time when their love is at its peak. There is another theory. It is said that Hashiheim was created by a woman who lost her husband. Legend has said that she was a jealous woman. She cursed others in the water and turned into a demon. If she saw a beautiful woman crossing the bridge, she would bring misfortune to the other woman. Therefore, there is a custom in Japan that a wedding party cannot cross the bridge. If there is a bridge on the way to pick up the bride, they have to make a detour. Once upon a time, a couple lived on the bank of the Yuji River. One day, the husband suddenly said he was going to the Dragon Palace and never came back. The wife died of grief and appeared as Hashiheim by the bridge. In another story, the husband married to second wife, and the first wife was so jealous that she died of hatred and was transformed into Hashiheim. And the first wife was so jealous that she died of hatred and was transformed into Hashiheim.
Hashihime.
Nyunisuzum, also known as the human sparrow, is a demon transformed into a spirit of grievances. Its eggs are smaller than a human pore and almost invisible to the naked eye. Its eggs are smaller than a human pore and almost invisible to the naked eye. Therefore, it usually lays its eggs on human bodies. When the young birds are born, they can eat human organs. Only after they have eaten all the organs will they fly out of the human body. Some hatchlings will use the human body as a cover to get close to other people in order to kill them. In the middle of the Heian period, there was a man named Fujiwara Mitsubara in Kyoto. He was a man of great power and talent, and he was loved by the emperor. By the 5th year of the Shrine era 994, Fujiwara Mitsubara had already reached the rank of lieutenant general. He was also a singer and was honored as one of the 36 singing immortals of the Middle Ages. At the same time, he was also the favorite of Inryuan, Hannya and Ichijoji. However, his colleague, Fujiwara Gyosei, belittled him, saying, "Mitsubara's songs are interesting, but he is very stupid." A quarrel rose between the two men. This quarrel even reached the palace. In a fit of anger, Mitsubara threw Gyosei's hat into the courtyard. Then he went away. Emperor Ichijo is aware of the situation and demotes Mitsubara to the post of Roko guard. While Gyosei responds with calmness, Gyosei is promoted by the emperor to the position of head of the Zanjin clan because of his calm response. Although he realized his mistake, he hated the emperor so much that he died of depression a few years later. After his death, his hatred turned into a sparrow, which flew to Seiryo-dan in the imperial palace in Kyoto and pecked at the grains of rice on the taipan, the table on which food trays were placed. To vent his anger at the emperor, this sparrow is called the Nyunisuzum, or the sparrow of Mitsubara, and is believed to be the spirit of Mitsubara's grudge. It is believed to be haunted by the spirit of Mitsubara.
Nyunai Suzume.